This week's episode is brought to you by Blue Harvest Vintage. Are you a collector? Blue Harvest love to help you find that missing piece you need to complete your collection. They have extensive stock of vintage Star Wars vehicles and mint-on-card action figures, as well as new The Force Awakens and Black Series items. Blue Harvest have Funko Pops, Lego, Dinky, Corgi, Matchbox and more. Everything a collector could possibly need. If they don't stock it, then let them know, and their knowledgeable staff will be only too pleased to help. Head to Morley Market in Leeds to see the life-size Darth Vader. Alternatively, reach out to Blue Harvest on Twitter at Blue Harvest UK, Facebook, Blue Harvest Vintage Collectibles, a website, blueharvestvintage.co.uk, or email at blueharvesttoys@gmail.com.
Talk Star Wars is a proud member of the Star Wars Commonwealth Podcast Network. Follow at SW Commonwealth on Twitter and take your first steps into a larger world. This is Talk Star Wars, the official podcast at talkstarwars.co.uk. Hello everyone, welcome to Talk Star Wars episode 48. I'm Mark.
And I'm Rob.
And we're solo.
Are we really at 48?
We're at number 48.
Blimey.
Can you believe it?
It's crazy.
We turned a year old this week.
Yeah, I know. It's mental. Can't get my head around it.
I know. Mad, isn't it?
I don't know.
We should explain the absence of the other two guys. Paul is currently trapped in London.
Yes.
Which is a great band name. And Stephen is unfortunately unwell.
Yeah, poor boy.
Yeah, that's veganism for you. But we will reconvene, I am sure, in the future. We are recording slightly earlier this week as well, for reasons we won't go into. But you will have a regularly scheduled show this coming week. Well, obviously you're listening to it, and next week there will be content on the feed, but it won't be a regular episode.
Of course,
it will be slightly different. I probably won't say what it's going to be.
No, that's fine. Keep it vague.
I think Blog Talk might broadcast in advance what it's going to be, but we'll see.
Okay.
So this will be your last Talk Star Wars podcast for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just move forward as if it were normal and we were all present, but it's just you and me.
Indeed.
So just a quick reminder that our sponsors, Blue Harvest Vintage, are offering a 10% discount on orders when you tell them that we sent you. So head to facebook.com/Blue Harvest Vintage Collectibles, or hit them up on Twitter, Blue Harvest UK, and take advantage of that, because 10% discount from Blue Harvest can be significant because they have some prestige products.
They do. And I will say, I don't know if I've mentioned it on the show, but they were very, very nice to me when I was making my first purchase with them, which is my Director Krennic pop vinyl.
Yes, yeah.
I think I mentioned it before, but I didn't tell it, and I didn't say I got it from Blue Harvest, but I did, and they were lovely all the way through. Sent it through nice and quick, and if you tell them TSW sent you, they'll knock a little bit off as well. So you can't go wrong, really.
And you got a quality product from them as well, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, it's a nice little thing, that. I like it.
It's lovely. Yeah, it's really good vinyl, actually. I've seen some fantastic pops recently. Not all Star Wars themed, but there's been some fantastic ones. They've got Preacher ones now.
They're a big thing. I heard this week that they've got just about every license you can possibly imagine.
They've got huge volume. They got, like I say, they've got Preacher ones. I saw them for the first time this week.
I think they even got Golden Girls. I'm not sure if that was a joke. At New York Comic Con, I think they've got the full range of Golden Girls. Perhaps you can do some research for me and see if that is true.
I will see what I can do. I don't think they sell them at Forbidden Planet, the shop full of geeky stuff for geeks, but I'll do my best.
They should. I might have to order the set.
Right. Well, why not?
Reviews. We have a review this week, which you found on Podrover, didn't you, and sent out to me.
Yes.
So don't forget, if you wanted to leave us a review, you can take advantage of what we've been calling our Ron Burgundy policy. That means whatever you write in a 5-star review, we will read verbatim.
I don't believe you.
If you want to try it, if you want to,
I was saying the Ron Burgundy thing.
If you want to promote your podcast or your blog, then this is how you do it. There's only one rule: keep it clean, because we're a family show. We don't want hate speak or profanity. Thank you.
Not at least not stuff that we haven't done ourselves.
Yeah. If you want to leave a review and have it read on the After Dark side, we can always do that. I mean, 5-star review is a 5-star review.
Yeah, well, I don't know if Apple will let you do an After Dark side review. So I've speculated this many a time. I don't think it's.
There are probably ways you can get around that. Like you would get around a profanity filter on an email.
Yes. Oh, yes.
So this review came in this week, and it was from the New Zealand iTunes store.
Oh, nice. Wow. Okay.
From, did you send me this one? Yeah, you did.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was from the New Zealand iTunes store by Anti Clamacus. And this is how that goes. I must say, I am well and truly hooked on this wonderful podcast. I'm quickly making my way through all the episodes, and I'm enjoying every minute. The knowledgeable team at Talk Star Wars do a fantastic job at enriching my experience of a galaxy far, far away, providing angles and insights that have me marveling and wanting more. I really appreciate the work and enthusiasm that goes into this podcast. Keep up the good work, lads, and stay classy. That made my day. That is great.
We will do anything within reason for fans as fantastic as the Star Wars Commonwealth Network fans.
Yeah, we have
there is very little we won't do.
Such a good community of people, and it goes beyond just sort of podcasting and people listening.
Yes,
everybody's so interactive. There isn't a day goes past where I don't have a conversation with somebody that listens to the podcast.
Totally,
and it's really this kind person said about how we are enriching their experience. Well, my experience is being enriched. This is a two-way street. And it's very rewarding. Indeed. And taking time to leave a review like that is just fantastic. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, listener comms. This week's episode is absolutely chocked full of listener communication. So when we get to the news, we may need to skirt around a few things because I imagine, especially with people rambling like me, it's probably going to draw things out. So,
well, you know.
You can send us your questions and comments via Twitter, Facebook, or send us an email at talkstarwarsinfo@gmail.com. And now you can send voicemail quickly and easily from your iPhone and what have you. It's very straightforward. So we had this great email this week from a gentleman named Steve Lewis. Now, Steve is the executive officer of the Outer Rim Garrison, 501st in Canada.
Oh, nice.
His number is TI-7615.
My age, you're a saint.
Yeah, he found us via Rob, Generation X-Wing. So thanks for the connection, Rob.
Yes,
Steve said he's been listening to the show. We'll go through his emails. So he writes, "Greetings from the wet coast of Canada, specifically beautiful Victoria, British Columbia. I'm a relatively new listener to your podcast. I found my way to your show via our good friends over at Generation X-Wing, but I'm a big fan of what I'm hearing so far. Now that the pleasantries are out of the way, on to my question. The Star Wars universe is such an amazing place with so many fantastic characters, creatures, worlds, and weapons. But my questions, in little brackets, for you are focused more on the vehicles of Star Wars.
Okay.
First, out of all the vehicles from Star Wars, including the expanded universe, sorry, Legends, and those silly, horrible prequel movies, what is your personal favourite vehicle? The Falcon, AT-AT, TIE Interceptor. The latter of those is my personal favourite, which is why I've stuck an image in the show notes.
Okay.
Secondly, with all that's happening in Rebels, The Force Awakens, now Rogue One, what do you think is the coolest of the new vehicles introduced so far? The Ghost, Kylo ship, the new U-Wing. And finally, we are going to break this down in a second. And finally, what vehicle do you think needs more screen time? The B-Wing, Slave One, or from the expanded universe, what vehicles would you love to see on the big screen? The TIE Defender, the YT-1000. Keep up the great work and long live the Empire and the Commonwealth. Cheers, Steve, 15 Lewis. So it's TI-615, Outer Rim Garrison Executive Officer. I've put a link in there to the Outer Rim Garrison as well.
Yes.
So that you can head over there and see the good work that they do. So you may see in the notes here, Rob, I just wanted to say, firstly, let me say how much I respect and appreciate the work done by the 501st. I think these guys are just awesome.
Yes.
And they are
agreed.
They are a gigantic reason why the Star Wars fandom stands apart from other fandoms. Like
Couldn't agree more.
Like Marvel, Star Trek, Walking Dead, and all that sort of stuff. These guys are the tip of the spear that changes the dynamic of Star Wars fandom because they go out there, they put so much time and money into building their armor.
Yeah.
And then they go out there in their own time just to enrich the experience of other fans. And when those other fans are children that are unwell,
Yeah, exactly.
It's massively impactful. So
it's a wonderful gesture.
These guys are so important to what's going on in Star Wars, and that's why Lucasfilm and Disney use them at these huge events.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Why they're canon. They're canon. The banner was in The Force Awakens.
Oh, of course, yes, it was.
The 5 first are canon.
Yeah.
So, Steve, you and your compatriots, you do fantastic work, sir. And anything you ever need from Talk Star Wars, you will get.
Well,
so let's break down this gent's wonderful question. So, what is your favourite Star Wars vehicle? And I've put in the notes, let's table the Falcon, because I think most of us would go for that, wouldn't we?
I think so, yeah.
So aside from the Falcon, the best vehicle in Star Wars, Rob?
Oh, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Are we talking like small, sort of not passenger ships necessarily, but we're not talking Star Destroyers and stuff, right?
Why not?
I could really vouch for the Superstar Destroyer, because that is just such a presence. Especially, when you think about, like, obviously the most impactful, we're talking about it, last show before last, about how impactful it is to see the normal Star Destroyer cut through the air at the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Then you think about Empire, and you see a normal Star Destroyer suddenly get eclipsed.
Yeah.
By what turns out to be the Superstar Destroyer. It's just that entrance in the movie. They looked at it and went, "Look, this was such a huge moment in New Hope. How can we top it?"
Yeah, and they literally did, didn't they? They literally put that shot into shadow.
Stellar job. And it's just it just shows all the better for it. It's just Superstar Destroyer is my vote. There you go.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good solid choice.
So.
For a second, I nearly said the Cloud City podcasts. They've got the 2 podcasts.
Oh yeah, they're quite iconic, aren't they?
I really love those things. And when I was a kid, I have a diecast of that somewhere, which I had from childhood, and it was something I always wanted, the full-on Kenner version, the full-size Kenner version. I really do like them, but I think it would have to be, and I'm going to probably shout this out again later in the episode. Luke's Landspeeder from A New Hope.
Ooh, okay, interesting choice.
That's any particular reason? Because it's just an iconic image from Star Wars for me.
Okay, and I can swing with that.
Seeing that lad bomb around in that when I was a kid, I was thinking, oh, that would be so cool.
Yeah.
And they do such a good job with the effect of that as well, because it was on like a gimbal. They had a couple of versions. There was a version with wheels and a little mirror that hung down to hide the wheels, and then there was the version on the gimbal that just moved in a circle because it was there was a counterweight on the other side. Mm-hmm. They just found such ingenious ways of pulling that effect off, and I just really love it. And it is an iconic.
It is. It's awesome. Yeah, I can't disagree with that. With its iconic status.
Yeah,
indeed.
All right. Second part of Steve's question: what's the coolest vehicle that has been added since The Force Awakens and Rebels and Rogue One, and so on?
That's a great question. I am quite partial to the Ghost, actually. As I know some of the other Commonwealth podcast people play X-Wing, I've got a small collection, and I just picked up the Ghost, and I don't usually go for the bigger ships. Usually I sort of stick to the Starfighters, and that's it. But the Ghost is quite iconic in itself.
Yeah.
What else? Let me think. I don't know what I make of the U-Wing.
I really like the U-Wing.
I like it
already. I really like it.
I need to see it in action, I think, to really make my mind up. I think that's what I'm missing is just that element.
Yeah, because we've only seen it in clips, haven't we? But the idea that hold is full of those guys, full of like Jurett and Baze, and all our heroes are just crammed into the hold of that thing.
Yeah,
I really like it. I agree with you. I want to see it on the big screen and see how those wings perform, because I know they flip around, don't they?
Yes.
And they pull right back, and it becomes this much larger. So I don't understand the mechanics behind it, but yeah, I think actually I'm going to choose that. I'm going to choose the U-Wing, because it's the first thing that they've done really that's kind of broken the mold. Because we saw X-Wings, we saw TIE fighters in The Force Awakens, and they were slight developments on the originals, but the U-Wing is really something that's very, very original.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that.
All right, fair enough. I'm going to stick with the Ghost as my pick.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm going to go for that.
And finally, which ship would we like to see more of on screen?
I do think the B-Wing is underrepresented. When you think about, how big a deal they make of it in Rebels, it does seem like it doesn't get enough screen time elsewhere.
Yeah.
Almost as a sort of afterthought. So I'd be happy to see that.
Yeah.
It's
pretty
I'll go with
cool.
that. B-Wing.
I think practicality probably prevented that from being used
Maybe.
too much, because building a practical set of that is a lot harder than making a B-Wing or a Y-Wing bomber or an X-Wing fighter.
Ooh.
Would look cool, though.
Yeah.
I'm going to say the Outrider. And I'll tell you why, because it made a cameo in A New Hope. Right, Dash Rendar's ship, yeah?
Yeah.
So it made a cameo taken off from Mos Eisley in A New Hope Special Edition, so it's canon.
Yes, indeed.
But I quite like the idea of maybe it being retconned into Lando's ship, either pre or post Falcon.
Oh, okay.
Because there's no...
I don't know how I'd feel about them getting rid of Dash Rendar. Because George Lucas, I think, said that's the Outrider. I don't know if he ever said that's Dash Rendar. But, yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the ship's canonized, but I don't think Dash is, and I'm not sure it necessarily needs to be, but it'd be quite interesting to see another bulky freighter like the Falcon on screen in the Han Solo movie.
Yeah.
That would be pretty cool. So
that would be pretty cool.
That would give my vote.
I'd go for that.
Cool. Okay, there you go, Steve. We'll have a few more of those from you, mate. I really.
Too right.
That's great stuff. And I think I mentioned it previously, but in our show notes, if you download the show notes, I've put a link to the Outer Rim Garrison.
Yes, you did mention that.
You can click on there and get over to their website and have a look at what they're doing over there. So thanks again, Steve.
Thank you, mate.
Hopefully we covered enough for the interesting ships there. Right, we got a voicemail. Did you see who this is from?
I did. I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. I thought you would like this. Okay, here we go. Here's a voicemail from Robert Cast of Roman Pod and Cast fame.
Oh, man.
Hey guys, Rob Cast from the Roman Pod and Cast show, coming at you from Cambridge, Ontario, Canada. Just a quick couple things to touch on real fast. As to what you guys were talking about a few episodes ago with scroll or no scroll at the beginning of Rogue One, definitely I would prefer a scroll. But I'll bet 10 Canadian dollars that Forrest Whitaker does a narration over a montage at the beginning of Rogue One just to get the average Joe up to speed on where they are in the saga. Now for my question. I am lucky enough to own through the DVD copies of the original trilogy, and the bonus disc is the original versions of said trilogy. Now, over the last couple weeks, I've been able to binge a little bit and rewatch the original version of New Hope and Empire and Jedi, and I was really taken aback of how much I liked it. Now, I'm of that age where I actually saw A New Hope at the drive-in with my mother and father when I was a wee child. So going back and watching the original trilogy, the way they were originally shown in a theater when I was a kid, was a little stroll down memory lane. But later in the 90s, when George Lucas remastered the original trilogy, everybody got all up in arms saying, oh, they ruined our childhood, and he's taken this beloved thing away from us and ruining it. This is my opinion of it. If you're going to sit down and watch the saga or introduce the saga to somebody who has never seen it before and you're watching 1 to 7, definitely watch the remastered versions, because that way when you go from Revenge of the Sith into New Hope, it's not that jarring and it flows a lot better. So the way I see it, there's room in this world for both versions. If you're an old-timer like myself, and some of you's on Talk Star Wars, then you can appreciate sitting back and watching The New Hope or Empire as it was originally shown. But we can still have room in our hearts for the remastered version. So when we're showing the saga to our grandkids years down the road, they might not tune out halfway through the entire thing. So What do you guys think? Thumbs up or thumbs down to the remastered version of the original trilogy? I look forward to your answer. Keep up the good work. I listen every week. May the force be with you, and ooh-tee-tee.
What a superstar.
Yeah, I was so happy when I realized that he'd emailed in. It puts a smile on my face beyond words, just because you listen to, when you're listening to somebody on shows every week, and I do with Roman Podcast, it's appointment listening for me. When you're listening to somebody every week, it's very easy to feel like you're just there. You're not kind of involved in the process, but they've always been really great at kind of giving us a shout out because I mentioned them or because I talked to them on Twitter and stuff like that. So it's nice in that respect, but it's something else entirely to hear them talk to you as friends. It's
and now have them on our podcast.
Exactly.
Even if we've only got part of the team, his voice on our podcast. I said to him, I was a little bit starstruck to have a voicemail from somebody whose content I consume.
Yes, it's always nice.
Bit of a thrill. So
when you said it could be Krennic, I almost.
Yeah, I did. But full disclosure, in our private Twitter chat that all the Commonwealth users have access to, I said, Rob, when you hear who we've got a voicemail from this week, you might just poop.
Yeah, because it did make me think, Ben Mendelsohn? No, surely not. Can't be. But if you're listening, Ben Mendelsohn, you want a voicemail in, by all means do. Please don't feel put off. I can always get new pants.
I'm sure Rob will document the poopage.
Oh yeah,
and we'll get you new pants as an overhead.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's only reasonable.
What do we think of Robert's question then? Thumbs up or down to the remasters? And when was the last time you saw the original versions, Rob?
Last time I saw the original versions would have been probably on VHS, actually. Mm-hmm. Sorry to say, because I do have the DVDs that Rob's talking about with the original versions and the special edition remasters on them, but they've just one of those things I picked up because I wanted to own them because I didn't want them to pass me by, but I've just never had a chance to actually sit down and watch them. And I've heard from you, wasn't it from you, that the quality of the transfer isn't great anyway?
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's all sorts of terrible. Because I of course I picked them up as soon as I could. And
of course. Only natural.
For a little while that was the only way I watched the original trilogy.
Yeah.
Was on those DVDs. Mm-hmm. But it's awful.
Yeah.
The audio's terrible, the image is terrible. It's not framed in the right aspect ratio.
That's a shame.
It looks just so it's disgusting. So what Robert's saying is absolutely right.
Yeah.
If you're going to show them to people for the first time, it has to be the special editions.
Yeah.
And this is what's frustrating for me as a diehard fan is I would like to have the option to watch the original versions in HD without the modifications and alterations. In fact, with branching technology, I'm sure there's a way you'd be able to take the bits out you don't like and leave the bits in that you do.
Yeah.
Because there are some aspects that improve the experience. But
sure.
I'd love the freedom to be able to do that.
That would be good, yeah.
Which is why I was championing a little while ago Harmy's Despecialized Editions.
Yes, I remember
you can legally own.
One of the first episodes I ever was on, I think.
I think that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
You can legally own those. If you own the Blu-ray box set, you can apparently you can legally own the Harmy Despecialized Editions. I've got New Hope, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, copyright's all weird, isn't it?
Yeah. He's done such a good job at remastering this edit, which is cobbled together from all sorts of sources.
Yeah.
And it is a shame. I do love the original cut of Star Wars. I think Lucas nailed it. I don't know why he felt the need to make the changes that he made, but I can watch them as we have done recently. Now, we've only watched A New Hope so far and done the audio commentary, haven't we?
Yes.
That is cracking. That experience was cracking. Even though, we probably had other things to talk about when there's a Jawa swinging from a Ronto in the street in Mos Eisley.
Yeah.
And, I don't get it. I don't get the retool. So my choice would be original, but because of the poor quality of those DVDs, I'm going to have to go special edition.
Yeah, well, fair. I don't know. I suppose I'd go special edition only because they're the ones I saw at the cinema. Because obviously I was just too young for Jedi, like a few years too young.
Yeah, but
it was 83, so it's a year before I was born.
I saw them all in the cinema.
Yeah,
and even
I can see why that would appeal. Why that would hold certain, a certain extra clout for you.
I was 5 when the first one came out. I remember seeing Empire because my parents made my sister come with us. I didn't understand why she couldn't just stay at home. She was 1.
Okay.
What trouble's a 1-year-old going to get in? Just leave her at home. But they insisted on bringing her with her, and she ruined the entire experience with her incessant crying.
Oh, I thought you were just going to be like, don't go in there, girl.
She was just telling me spoilers.
Yeah,
it was Empire. She was like, he's going to
go in there, girl.
He's going to be his father. And I do kind of remember seeing Jedi because I'd have been 11. I remember somebody spoiling Jabba the Hutt because we were queuing outside, and one of my dad's friends came out with his kids.
Yeah,
they said, "You going in to see Star Wars?" My dad said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, you're going to have this big slug," and I thought, "No, stop with the spoilers." You're off the Christmas card list. Yeah, there you go, Robert.
I think that's only fair.
We're both given the special editions some love, but for very different reasons. Mine is purely for quality, not content. I would much rather have the originals at the quality of the special editions. Thank you, please, and thank you, Lucasfilm.
Totally fair.
Okay.
I get it. I do.
What we're going to do, Rob, is what we said. We're going to go straight to Carlos Candido.
All right.
And if you would like to, you can take it.
All right. I shall. So this is from Carlos Candido, a.k.a. Darth Negan. Nice. Man, now I want to see that Photoshop.
Get on it, someone.
Is it Negan or Negan? I'm not familiar.
I've always said Negan.
Negan,
and
okay.
That's the way they pronounce it in the show.
I'll go. If it's pronounced on the show, that would be it. Yeah. I'll go with that. Hello again, Darth Negan here. In regards to Nathan Wan Kenobi's question about Luke and Han's relationship, could Luke have been going to look for the Jedi Temple because he was forced to do so? Snoke, Kylo, and the Knights of Ren obviously defeated Luke and destroyed his school. What if Kylo, in his weakness, allowed Luke to escape with the caveat that he should never return? What if Luke is stranded? We've known Luke to be a bit of a defeatist from the original saga, so there is history as to why Luke could feel like his presence would be counterproductive. I'm eagerly awaiting Rob to cut down my theory and send me away with my tail tucked deep. Cheers. Darth Negan, a.k.a. Carlos Candido. He's included his website, which will be in the show notes, but it's carloscandidomusic.com. And his Twitter is @ccandidomusic. And he is a cracking musician as well.
He really is.
I broke my Kickstarter rule to donate to his album funding. And since then, I've then set up I've donated to another Kickstarter as well. So, Carlos, you have opened the floadgates, sir.
I hope you're pleased with yourself. Down the dark path.
Forever will you end up with stuff. I'm not going to knock that theory too heavily. I think that's pretty reasonable. I think I quite like that, if I'm honest.
Okay. Well, there's a breakdown which kind of will give us a deconstructed version of his email. So,
all right, cool. So, part 1 then. Was Luke forced to seek out the Jedi Temple? So, I would assume in this sense we're talking, was he kind of sent off in exile? He's like, I'm coming back and I'm bringing my more powerful mates.
Yeah.
Fix your wagon, Snoke.
Yeah, I don't really know about that.
I never necessarily got the impression that he'd been beaten. I knew he'd definitely been obviously out. He'd obviously been scuppered.
There's some canon stuff here to consider.
Yeah.
And now I'm speaking from a place of ignorance to a degree because I haven't read the Journey to the Force Awakens series of books. Aftermath.
The sort of young. Oh, you mean?
Yeah. I think there's mention in Aftermath. I don't know. There's mention in a canon book of Lor San Tekka and Luke.
Yeah.
Working together to find
Rose.
The temples. Now, I suspect this is where Lor San Tekka grew to know Ben.
Yeah.
And that explains the familiarity between Lor San Tekka and Kylo Ren.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends how this plays out. So if Luke was looking for Jedi temples, as Han points out in TFA, with Lor Santeca before Ben falls, then he wasn't forced to seek out Jedi temples. He's doing it through a thirst for knowledge.
Yeah.
So that's my gut is telling me that that's why Luke went looking for temples.
Yeah.
And that little thing we see in Rey's Force vision of Luke putting his hand on R2 and the cry of pain that we hear, which is the cry from Cloud City.
Yeah.
I think that's there to sort of indicate that Luke at that point is in despair, probably from the slaughter of his students and the fall of his school. And maybe that's when he decided, I already know where the temples are, I'm going to go. And I'm going to remove myself from the equation completely.
I'll show them. Yeah.
And I think it's self-imposed exile.
Yeah, I think so too.
So that I've kind of jumped ahead a little bit there and answered all three of those things. So my apologies, but
it's all right.
I think Luke found the Jedi Temple before Ben's fall.
Okay.
And so he knew he's already done his pilgrimage. He and Lor Santeca know where these temples are.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Luke was defeated. We've said before, haven't we, that the Knights of Ren could have struck while he was away because they know
that's what
that
I was
the
thinking
school
too.
would be easier to bring down
over.
without him there.
Yeah.
So the anguish that Luke feels and the guilt that Luke feels will inform the Jedi that he has become.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't there to protect his students. Never did he expect the Knights of Ren to turn up and destroy everything.
Indeed, yeah.
And so I think Luke is probably on Arc 2 from his own free will.
Yeah, I think you're probably right there.
That feels right to me.
Yeah, I would agree. And like I say, I second the notion that he didn't necessarily, he was gone kind of while it happened. I think that's definitely true. And I don't think they had I don't know that necessarily he's ever seen Kylo Ren as Kylo Ren. Never really thought about that before.
No, that's a really good point. And I don't suppose there's any reason for him to have been face to face. And that might be something this might be a scene that we'll get of Luke finally meeting the apprentice the way Obi-Wan finally met Darth Vader, when the last time he saw him was a destroyed Anakin.
Yeah.
So that would be another one of those echoes that George liked so much in his films, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
The rhyme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good question, though.
Good question, yeah. I mean, I love the questions that when I've read them, it sort of helps me
start thinking.
Form a thought, a solid thought about something that I hadn't taken the time to consider before.
Mm-hmm.
And this might play into why Lor Santeca had that map.
Yeah.
If he knew that there was a map of Luke's pilgrimage somewhere, and that's what he had to get in order to pass that on to the Resistance.
Yeah.
Unless he had it all along. I know the opening crawl doesn't support that theory, but if he had that all along and it was just a matter of timing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think Luke found the Jedi Temple before Ben fell, and then the Knights of Ren struck the school while Luke was away.
Yeah, I think so.
And so Luke put himself into exile the way Obi-Wan and Yoda did.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. I say once again, Carlos, it's a cracking question.
Yeah,
so your tail can stay well and truly out. So don't worry about that. He said about
He did tuck deep.
Yeah. Yeah. See,
just disturbing vision.
I don't just bring this stuff.
You don't just say these things.
No.
All right.
Not a complete psycho.
Not complete. Just
80%.
Near as damn it.
Yeah.
All right. We've got a question from Dave Donovan. I was just thinking Dave's going to need a Star Wars name at some point.
All right. Landonovan.
Oh, well done.
Dave Landonovan. There you go.
Dave Landonovan.
Yeah.
Well done. That's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, let's hope Dave feels the same.
This is Dave Lendonovan. Yeah, I mean, anybody that we give Star Wars names to, you can override these things.
Yeah, but you should also feel pretty honoured, I think. Not to put words in your mouth.
Yeah, that might be going a bit too far. So this is Dave's question. Kylo has a helmet, no Steve, so no tittering in the background.
Oh, funny that.
I might have to lift that out of a previous episode and cut it in. We have to... Kylo has the helmet, as in Darth Vader's helmet. We have to assume the skull is contained. Would cremated bones of such a powerful Jedi have a remnant connection to the Force? I'd say yes. Doesn't even need the M word to go down the drain. Each bone could be used nefariously by, say, witches/sisters, like the Night Sisters of Dathomir, or Sith witches, or someone with knowledge how to conjure up a Force ghost of the bone's former owner. I can't see Disney going there, but it's an interesting thought. This is great.
Yeah, it is. That's really
I mean, Dave is no stranger to cracking open intriguing things. Well, he does it quite often, doesn't he, on Twitter? But I've put in the breakdown Dark Side Voodoo. Now, there's some stuff in the Clone Wars.
Yep.
That kind of goes. I mean, you got the Night Sisters of Dathomir, haven't you?
Yep.
They're kind of like this clan of witches, and then you got the father, the brother, and the sister.
Yes.
From the Mortis trilogy.
Yes.
I think it's the Mortis trilogy. And they show Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka all sorts of weird and wonderful visions with the Force.
Yes, indeed. Actually, it's referenced in the Dark Disciple book as well.
Well, Dathomir. Excuse me, the Mortis trilogy.
Well, it's kind of, in a similar vein. Basically, Quinlan Vos goes to get Asajj Ventress's help to kill Dooku, because this is sort of set at the very end of episode 2, I guess. And she won't help him at first because, obviously for a start, she's convinced he can't succeed. So she takes him to Dathomir to test whether or not he could accept the dark side and stuff, and he ends up having to do a trial similar to, the Jedi trials, but for Night Sisters, I guess.
Yeah.
They reference that in Dark Disciple as well.
Now, if there's a theme to this evening's show, I think it's probably going to be the modification of the Force and the Jedi and the way we understand it.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's room for this to become part of what we understand as Force manipulation moving forward. So might we see something along the lines of Dave's theory play out in new Star Wars?
Yeah, entirely possible.
I've heard today it was on makingstarwars.net, and I didn't put it in the show notes. There's not much to go on really. That there's something about Kylo Ren's new wardrobe.
Right.
I'm not going to go into specifics because I don't want to create any spoilers. You can head to makingstarwars.net and read the story there. But there's something about Kylo's wardrobe that suggests he is still pulling in these Darth Vader artifacts.
Okay. Oh, now I'm intrigued.
Yeah. So are we going to be leaning more and more on this stuff? That there might be some value in these things.
Oh, it sounds like it
for other people.
Yeah.
I like what Dave's suggesting, that someone might be able to conjure up a Force ghost just by having those remnants. Now, if anyone's going to try and do that, I think we've seen Kylo try and do that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
In The Force Awakens, right?
Seen him, he's having a good old-fashioned chinwag with Darth Vader's helmet.
Now, if anyone's going to do it, Kylo is most likely going to be the one that will go and pull in a witch or a Night Sister and bring one of these characters from the Clone Wars animated series into canon.
Clone Wars animated series is canon. Oh, no, the animated...
not canon. It is. You're right. You're correct. I
see what you're saying. Yeah, back into the saga.
To legitimize it further by bringing it into live action.
Okay, yeah.
And wouldn't that be an awesome thing if you see Kylo saying, "I can't get anything off this thing," tapping that helmet? Can you do whatever that thing is you do?
Yeah,
that can conjure up the ghost of Anakin. Mm-hmm. That would be awesome. I don't know how much screen time they'd use on it, but I think it would be spectacular to see something like that.
That would be pretty cool, especially if it's just kind of him he's trying to go through all the different sources he possibly can, trying to unlock the secrets.
Yeah.
Some sort of, not like a montage, because that'd be ridiculous, but, something along those lines would be pretty cool.
You don't want to see a Team America style montage?
No.
With every little scene, you get a little bit better.
No, I don't. No.
In this scene, Kylo Ren will be played by a puppet.
Yeah, well, that's maybe a Black Series figure. That might work.
That would be good with strings on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like this idea, and I think I'm gonna have to sort of give this some thought and maybe do a Star Wars Insights into it. I'll probably need to see the Mortis trilogy again.
Yes.
And maybe
but I've not seen the full Clone Wars stuff, so
pluck a few episodes out with the Night Sisters in, because one character I really desperately wish had made it into live action is Asajj Ventress.
Yeah, she's unfortunately, because of the canon, she's unlikely to. I'll say that.
Yeah, she's unlikely to make the transition now, but there's no reason why we wouldn't get a Star Wars story that features Asajj Ventress.
Very true. And very true. I'd be well up for seeing that. She's a great character.
Could even involve Han.
Yeah.
I guess. Young Han. I'd have to look. Maybe. I'd have to do some research into the timeline.
Yeah, it'd be tricky.
The Clone Wars?
No, it wouldn't work.
No, he'd be 10 years too old in these movies.
Yeah.
We might get a Clone Wars movie. I'd like to. Did you know that she is a discarded Darth Maul concept?
I've heard that somewhere. Yeah, I've heard something to that effect. Yeah, brilliant.
Hence the two lightsabers.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, she's like I say, she's a cracking character.
Yeah, really good.
Not wasted, but that never really got the full extent of her ability. Really, I suppose. What I'm going to say.
Okay, we've got another voicemail, an audio message, a voicemail from James at Tumbling Saber.
What's better than a question about Star Wars? Why, 2 questions about Star Wars, of course. Hello again from Canada, James here at the Tumbling Saber. Didn't get my question in last week. As a dad of young 3 children, I have a lot of nerfs to hurt around here. So I'm going to ask 2 this week, and you guys can tackle them both on one show, or split them up, or not tackle them at all, but here they are. Question 1. Star Wars, as a saga, as an industry basically, is very impactful. But if it had never been made, if the saga didn't exist, which movies would never have been made or would never exist? And I think George Lucas created something that inspired many stories afterwards. So what do you think we wouldn't have if Star Wars had never been made? And question 2. Retitle the saga. If you can't use Star Wars, what's a great title for these movies? For this story? That's it, guys. Have fun with these questions, and can't wait to hear another great show. Peace.
He really is a genius, isn't he? Absolute genius.
I can't even put into words what a genius that man is.
This is a great question, and that's brilliant. This really plays into my wheelhouse because I'm such a fan of Uncle George.
Yeah.
And I'm so familiar with the path that Star Wars has carved out for cinema.
Yeah.
So I would say very quick. I'm not going to go too deep because it will get tedious.
Okay.
But my quick answer to James's first part of the question is: if Star Wars was never made, what subsequent films would never have been made? Yep. All of them.
I think a large volume of them wouldn't have been made. I absolutely agree.
You wouldn't just follow the path from Star Wars.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have any of the marketing backed movies that you have today because he invented that.
Yep.
You wouldn't have any of the CG strong movies that you had today because
he pioneered a ton of it. Yep.
You wouldn't have non-linear editing. You wouldn't have multi-channel surround sound. I mean, you might have got to these things.
It would have taken much longer.
It would have most likely taken a lot longer.
Yeah.
But a couple of films that would never have got made, you wouldn't have had T2 without Star Wars.
Why do you say what is it in particular about that?
CGI, the fluid CGI would never have been developed without Star Wars, without ILM.
Okay,
you
so
you wouldn't
ILM,
have had you wouldn't have had T2, you wouldn't have had this. These things are all contingent on Lucas driving those people to crack that code, literally.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, it's weird to think how vast an impact Star Wars has. But it's when you think about it, it's not that crazy. It's just strange to think about.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. This is the thing. You're absolutely spot on that all of these things are true. But it's just weird to put it in that context and go, yeah, wow, you really, really wouldn't.
Yeah, you most likely wouldn't have seen the Marvel movies that we get today make it to the big screen.
Yeah.
Without those people, without John Dykstra developing certain camera equipment and the multi-pass optical printer, you just don't get to today's modern special effects capabilities.
Ooh, I've got one.
Without that, go on, mate.
In the same vein of you're saying about marketing-driven movies, they wouldn't have had the courage. Tim Burton's Batman, I think, wouldn't have been so. I mean, that's a hugely marketing-driven movie.
Yeah,
the point where it made Jack Nicholson all his money.
yeah.
You know,
and broke the mold for those sort of contracts.
Well, exactly. You know, it's mental to think about that, isn't it?
Yeah, cinema
absolutely insane.
Would be very different. I mean, you wouldn't without Star Wars. You have no Indiana Jones. You just don't get there because without Star Wars, Lucas doesn't have the prestige that he needs. To get Indiana Jones up and running. So Spielberg might not have had the career that he ended up having because Spielberg's career was really on the rocks right from Jaws.
Yeah, it's true actually. Yeah, because that's that Secret History of Star Wars talks about that, doesn't it?
He went over budget, over schedule, and the next film he did, I think, was 1941.
Okay.
And it died in its arse.
Oh, isn't that the? Yeah, I know the one you mean.
So without, I mean, he had Close Encounters, but R2-D2 was in Close Encounters, and a lot of the special effects work that was developed on Close Encounters probably wouldn't have been done without the multi-pass optical printing that was developed for Star Wars.
Yeah, that's very true.
There's a lot of stuff there. Without Raiders, E.T. was a couple of years after Raiders.
Yeah.
But E.T. is another one that needed those effects.
Yeah. This is it. Man.
And John Williams.
Yeah.
So Star Wars really is the key that opens an awful lot of doors to modern cinema.
Very much so.
And I know it's largely a semantic argument because you could probably get to these things without Star Wars, but you would have gotten to them later.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on.
And a lot of films like T2 depend largely on the point in time in which they were released to be successful. So there's a lot of stuff tied together here, especially like The Abyss.
Yeah,
you don't get that CGI work in The Abyss. You don't get Jurassic Park. Without Jurassic Park, you don't get the Star Wars prequels. I'm starting to see a fault in my reasoning. All right, let's move on to part two. Let's retitle the Star Wars saga.
Man,
this is a bold, thankless task.
Yeah.
Can we cheat and just say the Star Wars and just put the in front of it?
No. I don't think that's in the spirit of the question.
No.
Let's think.
Flash Gordon.
You're just being silly now.
I am a little bit. It's I don't know. You know, the Star Wars geek in me wants to say
there's no other way of doing it.
The Adventures of Luke Starkiller, or
Yeah, but even then, like, I think there's a reason they changed that. It's because it's kind of naff.
Yeah, but it's
I mean, it sounds harsh to say, but I really do think that title is kind of naff.
Yeah, well, even dropping the definite article from the title and just leaving it as Star Wars is a massive improvement, isn't it, to the Star Wars?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I'm going to go for. Let's see.
Why not break it in two?
No, I'm going to go for the whole saga.
Okay.
Vader.
Just Vader.
Yeah.
See, I was going to go prequels Fall of the Jedi and the OT as Rise of the Empire.
Okay. I mean, that works too. I can see that working too. Yeah. I think, like I say, I'd go just Vader as a single thing, because ultimately by the end, that you're following his, the end of the saga, you're following his entire arc.
Yeah.
That's the key crux of it.
Or Skywalker would even fit.
Skywalker would fit.
Because you get to cover all 3 trilogies.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know.
You can have the title in black for the ones where he's fallen as well.
Oh, very nice. The Age of the Age of the Empire or something.
Can we fake a technical incident and just skirt around the edges of this? Because I don't think there's any way to do this. Star Wars is just too perfect a title.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really tough.
I think either Skywalker or Vader would be perfect because it covers so much of what these films are about.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's definitely that's a good answer.
Cool. Thanks for your question, James.
Awesome,
as always.
Yeah, thank you, mate. That's an absolute storm.
Nice one. Yeah. All right, mate. Do you want to take Rob? Do you want to take Kyle's musing? Sure. This is an awesome musing as well.
Okay, nice. Okay, so Kyle, this is Tumbling Saber Kyle, right?
It is indeed, yep.
Right, so Kyle writes, "Hello, boys. This isn't so much a question, more than it is me presenting you with a loose thread and asking you to run wild with it. From what we've learned about Director Krennic, we believe that he's in competition with Darth Vader for Palpatine's approval. Similarly, we see Hux and Kylo Ren jockey for position as the apple of Snoke's eye. Whether it's middle-aged men like Krennic or Vader, or young men like Hux and Ren, there seems to be no limit to a leader's ability to make people grovel for attention and admiration. Is there anything here worth talking about? Can you conjure up a few minutes of podcasting magic, or should I go fly a kite with my meaningless musings? Cheers, Kyle."
They're not meaningless. They're fantastic.
By no means. Yeah, absolutely.
So what's the power dynamic at play in Star Wars?
I think it's even more than that. I think it's purely just, it's about succession. Because they all believe, whether it's Krennic or Vader or, because let's not forget that we learned from the quote last week that Krennic's in competition with Vader and Tarkin.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going for, he's not trying to get in Tarkin's good books. He's after the Emperor, which, I can't say I blame him. If you're going to, get somebody's attention, he's a good one to go for.
Yeah.
But I think it's just, it's about succession. It's if you know that you're the next man in line for the throne, then that gives you a certain, arrogance is the wrong word, but it gives you a certain comfort in your day-to-day life. I mean, obviously it's a bit of a poison chalice because the rule of 2 is such that there's always going to be somebody coming along to try and take somebody's power.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's what goes through their heads. I think they consider themselves to be, if they think they're in line next, then they can relax a bit, as it were.
I'm glad you mentioned the rule of 2 because that was something I was gonna point out myself, that even though Kyle was mentioned, all the characters he mentioned are post Lucas era.
Yeah.
To a degree. I know that we've mentioned Palpatine and we've mentioned Tarkin, but Krennic jockeying for position within the Emperor's graces, and Hux and Kylo apparently jockeying for a position within Snoke's graces are all just extensions of George's original concept for the rule of 2, the Sith law, the rule of 2.
Yeah.
And that is all a power play, isn't it? Every second of the
100%.
way. We see it in the original trilogy when Palpatine pits Luke against Vader.
Yeah.
And he will be the only victor there, and he'll take all the spoils because someone's going to come off worse. We've seen it previously with Palpatine when he set Dooku against Anakin. And obviously Dooku lost, and Palpatine picked up Anakin's soul,
the hottest free agent in the Jedi.
Indeed, yeah. And this stuff, obviously, what we're dealing with here in Cole's question is stuff that's happening in the new movies. So George is long since gone, but it's reassuring that they're building on George's initial template.
Yeah.
Which I think we see as a George Lucas nerd, we see in other George Lucas materials. We see this kind of this thing play out with fathers and sons, and also young men in competition with themselves. Yeah. I'm thinking Indy struggling in the shadow of his father, and I'm thinking of the characters of Steve Bolander and Kurt Henderson in American Graffiti, who are two sides of the same character, and it's George.
Right. Yeah, of course. It's all kind of autobiographical, isn't it?
Because he's an auteur filmmaker, so George's life is on screen all the time.
Yeah.
And the way I've always read that power dynamic is George trying to assert his own independence and having two paths to go down. And it's almost, there's no surprise to people that Darth Vader is the Dark Father, and it's this looming personality that George had to deal with. His father was a very successful businessman in Modesto, and he wanted George to join the family business. He wanted George to take on the family business. George wanted to be an artist. He wanted to go off and create these weird experimental films. He never intended to make Star Wars. He wanted to go off and do this weird experimental stuff. And I think that's what this is, that we're seeing when we're seeing the rule of two. You've got the father at the head, and then you've got the two possible paths the son can choose in competition for each other. Yeah. And with George, we see in American Graffiti quite clearly, Kurt is the guy that leaves the small town when he wanted to stay. Yeah. That's the power dynamic, I think, that we're seeing in all of George's films, because he's an auteur filmmaker. So that's what we're being shown. We're being shown his life as he examines it through this unusual lens. But it's very interesting to me that these new storytellers now that have taken over from George, have taken the baton from George, are still following through with that, when it's no longer their story to tell, but it's...
And yet there they are.
But there they are. There's Hux and Kylo.
Yeah.
Do you think they'll lean on those Sith tendencies more with these two characters?
I don't know, because I mean, I've got no reason to believe that Hux has got any kind of sensitivity.
No, that's more of a Tarkin Vader dynamic to me. Those two.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tricky, isn't it? Because it's hard to know how it's going to play when. Again, it's something we're missing, because we never had it with Tarkin Vader after A New Hope, obviously, because Tarkin gets killed in the Death Star.
No, but it's very much implied. It's very much implied that you come out of Clone Wars, you come out of Revenge of the Sith, and Vader's this broken version of Anakin. Yeah, and it seems to me, and again, this is only an inference on my part as a viewer, but it seems to me that Tarkin was much more in favour with Palpatine when Palpatine was firmly installed as leader. Yeah. He no longer needed muscle in his corner. No. He needed a mind. Yes. And so what was left of Anakin gets...
sidelined.
Yeah, and passed to Tarkin. As this is your muscle if you need him. Use him. But you're my number one guy, Yeah. So this Krennic and Tarkin struggle, I think is much more interesting to me, because we know who the big bad is, but he's still kind of sidelined at this point in time. Yeah. So the struggle between Krennic and Tarkin for supremacy in the eyes of the Emperor, I think, is going to be fascinating. And I'm gutted that it's most likely only going to play out in one film.
Yeah. It's a shame, really. It would be nice to see it play out in it elsewhere. But such is life.
Right. Okay, I like that, Carl. Great. And no musing is ever meaningless. I think we should always put these things out there for a little bit of discussion.
I think we've proven that, if nothing else, here.
Yeah, and also I think it probably bears a mention that George is a fantastic storyteller. I know we give him a hard time sometimes for Jar Jar and the prequels and whatever mud you want to throw at the guy. Yeah. he is a staggering filmmaker. And when you look at his stories and you know that he's an auteur filmmaker, you can see these elements of his life that he's trying to express, and he's trying, probably at that time in his life, trying to work out some things.
Yeah.
And when you come at Star Wars from that, you can see why some of the relationships in George's life was so important. Like Francis Ford Coppola. And how important that guy is for Lucas's career, because without that guy, we probably don't have Star Wars.
No, probably not. This is true.
But he was very much a dominant, almost father figure, really.
Yeah.
To Lucas. And you can imagine Lucas always feeling like he's playing second fiddle, but he's always the number two in this scenario when he went on to be by far the more successful individual. Yeah,
because Coppola kind of went off the rails a bit, didn't he, in terms of...
A little bit, yeah.
In terms of Hollywood success. He still made good movies, but...
Yeah, so he's an experimental filmmaker as well. I mean, we could do a whole... One day we'll have to do a whole After Dark so just dedicated to George and American Zoetrope and the cinema of the 70s.
Yeah, all the different...
There's some really fascinating stuff in there.
Yeah, indeed.
But George was always the more cautious of the two men, and Francis would always rush in to something and would have to every now and then make the sensible choice to make a film like The Godfather because they needed to do something that actually paid the bills.
Yeah.
But he would rather be off making, I think it was called Finian's Rainbow, these experimental guerrilla films, where they'd go out and they'd go out without permits and they'd just go out and shoot.
Yeah.
And they'd just run to a location, film, and then run to the next location. And that's where films like George's THX 1138 came from. It came from early American Zoetrope going out there and just trying to make these inexpensive indie movies.
Yeah.
That I think they came up with a figure that had to be $777,000 or less. It was like some figure that they plucked out of thin air.
Yeah.
And Warner Brothers got on board and said, yep, we'll give you the money. Then they saw THX 1138 and said, nope, give us the money back. They did. Yeah. They just weren't ready for it. Lucas and Coppola were ahead of their time. American Zoetrope were ahead of their time. But I love this stuff. I love the cinema of the 70s.
Yeah, I know you're a big fan of that stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, thank you, Carl. Right, let's get on to...
It was a pleasure to hear from you.
How are we doing for time?
We're all right at the moment, I think.
Okay, yeah, let's do Chris's.
Yep, all right.
Do you want to take that one, mate? This is a challenge.
Okay.
Deep breath.
Good look. Right, okay, yep. Okay, so this is some interesting insights from Chris, the Whiteside Ronin White. Whiteside Ronin? Where did the Ronin bit come from?
Oh, you'll see by the time you get to the end of this.
Fair enough. Greetings, my friends in the Force. Over the past year or so, I've noticed that the Star Wars story group seems to be driving the concept of the Force extraneous of outside dogma straight into Episode 8 and beyond. Now, obviously, Lucas, with the prequel trilogy and the Clone Wars cartoon, showed us that the dogmatic intractability of the Jedi Order contributed largely to their own downfall. Moreover, both Dave Filoni and Pablo Hidalgo have gone to considerable lengths to reiterate this in the past few months. In addition to this, Filoni has taken the next step by bringing us three distinctly different characters to represent the ends of the Force spectrum and the mean between them. Ahsoka with the light, Bendu in the middle, Maul with the dark. That sounds like an Iron Maiden song, doesn't it? Maul with the dark.
Yeah, it's great.
Maul, I feel, is pretty uncomplicated. He's a self-serving, power-hungry murderer. He's evil. He embodies the dark side very well. The Bendu describes himself as the one in the middle. Like the Ents of Lord of the Rings, clearly an inspiration for the Bendu, Bendu represents neutrality and balance. And also like the Ents, this neutrality typically results in a lack of action one way or the other. That brings us to Ahsoka Tano, a character I typically refer to as a Force Ronin. Full disclosure, I stole that exact term, Force Ronin, from a Star Wars role-playing game website back in 2003. However, the term Ronin has been a part of my personal philosophy since my teenage years, which were a long time ago.
You and me
now,
both,
obviously, mine's nearly half my life ago now. Now, obviously, she does not belong to the Jedi Order and is no longer constrained by its dogma, but she is clearly on the light side of the Force and chooses to help the rebellion. She is driven by her internal need to do good in the world, and she uses the Force to do this. For those unfamiliar with the term Ronin, the primary meaning is simply a samurai who has no lord or master. The concept of samurai was a huge inspiration for Lucas's Jedi concept. Samurai serve and fight for a lord or governing body. A Ronin is one who is samurai trained yet does not belong to a particular lord. The Ronin can choose to whom and for what they wish to fight, or choose to not fight. Samurai may only fight for their lord, and the wrong or right of the fight makes no difference. Their sole duty is to serve their lord. Now, this brings me to Rian Johnson's film suggestions to the cast of Episode 8, one in particular, 3 Outlaw Samurai. Potential spoilers if you haven't seen this 52-year-old samurai film. Right off the bat, to avoid confusion, Outlaw Samurai and Ronin essentially mean the same thing. The 3 characters to which the title refers are trained samurai who, for varying reasons, no longer serve a particular lord. Now, throughout the course of the film, these 3 characters come together to fight for and protect villagers who are being oppressed by their governing lord. Now, I'm not normally a speculation guy, but it would make sense to use the peripheral Star Wars materials to help drive concepts to your flagship franchise film, Episode 8. Although I don't feel that they would give up the term Jedi because, frankly, it's a very cool word, they could be indicating that the direction of the Force Ronin could be where Luke is leading, but instead of giving it a new name, he could be redefining what it means to be a Jedi. Sorry, that's about as short as I could make it. I could talk about that stuff for hours. Aloha and mahalo, Chris White, White Side of the Force Ronin. And relax.
Well done.
Yeah, well, you know.
Most impressive. And to Chris as well.
Yeah,
absolutely staggering. Absolutely staggering essay.
Yeah, I can't...
We've got to unpack some of this stuff. So
yeah, big time. After all that, I guarantee we're going to.
The way I've broken this down, and the reason I've used red text in the show notes, Rob, is because that's my interpretation of the situation, and I'm not trying to...
influence me one way or the other.
Well, I'm not trying to imply that it was Chris's intention, so I'm not trying to put words in Chris's mouth. So,
all right.
But the breakdown is: are we seeing a reimagining of the Jedi in the new movies? So,
yeah,
Chris has mentioned a number of elements here. So he's mentioned Ahsoka,
yep,
and the Bendu.
Yep.
And then we can lump Maul in with the dark side. So the dark side hasn't really changed as far as I can see. We haven't seen anything. You know, it's the physical representation of the dark side in the new movies. At this point, it's Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the same as we've seen before. Dark side user, bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
But the new elements we're seeing now in canon are Ahsoka and the Bendu.
Yep.
Both of which go way back, have their roots in George's early drafts. Ahsoka being Ashla. I know that Ashla has a new canon. Has new canon elements associated with it, but she was initially the Ashla, and the Bogan was the dark side, and the Bendu was the original name for the Jedi. They were the Jedi Bendu.
That's right, yeah.
So now, as Chris has pointed out, Ahsoka is the light, the Bendu is in the middle.
Yes.
Now, I'm willing to bet at this point that the Bendu is balance.
Yep.
As in complete and utter inaction in any form. Okay. And if you've seen him in the animated series, he's pretty much just there. He dishes out a little bit of wisdom and then puts his head back in the sand. Complete and utter inaction.
Okay.
With the dark side, we see very negative action taken.
Yep.
It's cruelty, it's hatred, it's anger, it's an utter lack of compassion.
Yeah.
With the Jedi, we see something quite different. We don't see a great deal of compassion.
No.
And do you remember a while ago we sort of said, I think Qui-Gon Jinn might be the wisest Jedi we've ever had. Probably the most powerful Jedi we've ever had because of his understanding of the living force. He also lacked compassion. If you look at the movies, I didn't come here to free slaves. I can't bring your mother with us.
Yeah.
We'll leave her to her fate because that's not his fight. I'm not here to fight when he's on Naboo. I'm not here to fight for you.
Yeah.
No. The Jedi were guilty of a lot of stuff, and inaction was chief amongst them, even in light of some of the suffering. Now, Ahsoka isn't guilty of that.
No.
Ahsoka's a brand new thing.
Yeah.
And I believe this is why Ahsoka has the white blades.
Okay.
In new
canon. I'll go with that.
I've just finished the book.
Okay.
The Ahsoka novel.
Is it good?
It's fantastic.
Okay.
It's up there now with my top 3 so far.
Wow.
From new canon.
High praise indeed.
I love it so much because it explores exactly what we're looking at here. Exactly what Chris has kind of indicated.
Yeah.
And I would suggest that this might be where we see Luke go in the next 2 films.
I have a theory to throw into the mix.
Do it.
His inaction, which resulted in the death of Han Solo, is his attempt to become Bendu.
Yeah, but becoming Bendu is bad.
Yeah, but he realizes that
now,
which is why he looks haunted when she sees him. Is like, what have I done? Kind of, I've sat back and let events unfold, and it's cost me my best friend.
Yeah,
I think it's his attempt to become, something that he aspires to be, which is, just somebody who serves the will, serves the will of the Force.
Yeah,
kind of
makes you wonder if he's learned the wrong stuff at this temple.
Maybe, yeah.
It's what Kanan's learning in Rebels, or I've only seen a couple of episodes of the new Rebels, but
okay,
when Kanan interacts with the Jedi, when he interacts with the Bendu,
yeah,
he's very much being told inaction is the way forward.
Yeah,
that he's carrying a weapon to sort of fend up, without doing too many spoilers, to fend off some creatures. Mm-hmm. The Bendu's like, nope, you don't need that. Just don't do anything. They'll leave you alone.
Okay,
utter inaction. That is probably what Luke is.
Mm-hmm.
By the time we meet him, Luke is probably Bendu.
Yeah.
So his utter lack of action means that there is still suffering connected to that, because by not doing something, you're still doing something. You're allowing these other things to unfold. Mm-hmm. Ahsoka learns that that's not, in the book, without going into spoilers, she learns that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
That she will be guilty by doing nothing.
Through inaction.
And there will be struggling connected to her inaction.
Okay.
So she decides at great risk to herself to take action. But it's not action in the service of dogma, the way the Jedi would see it. Mm-hmm. She's not trying to further anybody's agenda. She's not a political lackey, which the Jedi kind of became when we see them in the prequels. They are Jedi. They are basically superhero politicians.
Yeah.
And she isn't that.
No.
So one exciting thing that crossed my mind when I read this from Chris is Luke suddenly going to realise that inaction, Bendu-style inaction, is just as bad because it costs the life of his friend, causes a lot of suffering and injustice. Will he then take the path that Ahsoka's taken? Mm-hmm. And because of what we know now with kyber crystals, are we going to see Luke Skywalker with a white lightsaber? And I know that's kind of superficial, but it would be the indicator that this guy has finally found balance.
Yeah, indeed. I like that. I would happily go with that as a way forwards. And
a pressing question came out of this as well, for me at least, after reading this essay from Chris. And this is the bit that I don't want to sort of anyone to get confused. This isn't what Chris is saying. This is my interpretation of it. Is this an attempt to right the ship following the prequels? Because we've gotten so bogged down in the temples and the cloaks and the council meetings and they work for the government and this and that.
Yeah.
Is this an attempt to sort of bring the Force back to spiritual roots?
I think that's definitely being done consciously. I think, the efforts to sort of to go back to, Maz Kanata didn't say, the Force is all around us. It's cells in your blood and that. She was talking about the mystical elements of it. She wasn't talking about, the Force, it's like a virus, basically. That sort of thing didn't happen in the film. She was very much sticking to the spiritual realm of it. And I think that's conscious. I think that's an attempt to play back into the mysticism of the Force that we all remember.
And it's the democratization of it as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Basically, both Maz and Ahsoka share some common ground, is that they're not aligned with either the Sith or the Jedi, but they're Force users.
No, exactly.
Chirrut Imwe in
Rogue
One.
To it. Yeah.
He's not a Jedi, he's not a Sith, but he's a Force user. Mm-hmm. And I think we might be seeing that this is the democratization of the Force. They're pretty much broadcasting, you don't have to be a Jedi for this stuff to work. You don't have to have the training that Luke nearly got. And bearing in mind some of Luke's best work was done before he'd completed his training. And when he completed his training, suddenly he's the Man in Black and he's choking people. Yeah. So I do think that it's not. I'm being careful not to use the term retcon. They're not retconning it, that they're growing it and they're expanding it and they're changing our understanding of it.
Yeah.
The Force.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would go with that. I think that's a perfectly valid observation.
Yeah, Chris's observation, and the fact that he's used the term Ronin, which is absolutely superb. Ahsoka is Ronin at this point.
Yeah, I would agree.
She's free to choose to do what she wants, and she's not in service of somebody else's agenda, whether that's light side or dark side. But she's also not willing to bury her head in the sand like the Bendu, almost literally, and do nothing in the face of suffering. No,
it's good. I like the way they're kind of adding a bit of, nuance to this whole proceeding.
Yeah, stunning stuff, and it's really good. That Ahsoka novel, you need to get that Ahsoka novel, Rob, as soon as it's available.
Yeah,
because what they do, and it's not just with Ahsoka. There's a little bit of stuff they expand on. I very nearly gave a spoiler. There's a little bit of stuff that they expand on that relates to the Skywalker saga. It's crucial, central to the Skywalker saga.
Oh, okay.
And
interesting.
When I read it, it blew me away. I actually had chills.
Yeah,
it's stunning. Maybe I'll tell you off air because I don't want to spoil it for anyone listening.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, Chris, incredible insight. Thank you so much for that.
Yes,
really cool stuff.
Take a bow and a deep breath.
Indeed. Well, you did the reading, Rob. You take the deep breath.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we got one more before we go to our break. Which is from Qui-Gon Reese.
Yep.
See, he goes away for a while, and then we get him 2 weeks in a row.
Like a bus.
Welcome back. He is like a bus, yeah. Hi, guys. Thanks for entertaining my question last week on Rebels and Rogue One possibly crossing over. Apologies for the background noise, because he was on Yavin, remember? Fit to take off.
Yeah, that's right.
I had one follow-up. The way Rebels is playing out, the mission to steal the Death Star plan seems like a mission perfect for the Rebels crew.
Right.
I mean, they do have 2 Jedi. So, since they're not going to be involved in the events of Rogue One, I would think something has to happen to that crew. Death, maybe. Maybe they're no longer a part of the rebellion. Prior to said events. Otherwise, I don't know. I don't think they can overlap in just a small cursory way. Thoughts? And he's noted that it's just his opinion.
Fair.
We don't know whether or not they're excluded at this point, do we?
No, this is it. I mean, we suspect heavily just because of the nature of the Rogue One movie. Like you say, he's absolutely right. It's a perfect fit for their sort of ragtag band of misfits. But the fact that they're not doing it is quite telling, because it means that something has happened. And whether that's they have to go into exile or they've all been split up, and so they're not a big enough group anymore to do it.
In practical terms, because of where Rogue One's going to fall and because of broadcast schedules, you could see that they might not want to tip their hand too much and reveal the end of Star Wars Rebels. And you also don't want both audiences to be committed to the other franchise. You need to be able to experience these things in isolation, don't you?
Yeah.
So I could imagine the Rebels being heavily involved with what's going on in the events of Rogue One, but we might get to see it from a different perspective play out on TV.
Okay.
So they might do some...
I see what you're saying.
We don't know what the narrative of Rogue One's going to be yet, but they could be in the background. They could just be off camera. They could be in another location pulling strings. We might hear reference to the Ghost. We might hear reference to the other team have made something happen, and we'll see that play out on the TV show. That could happen. Think the way Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. handles its responsibilities to the big screen adventures of Iron Man, Captain America, and what have you.
Yeah.
There's stuff that crosses over, like the Triskelion that gets destroyed in the Winter Soldier. You see some of that in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., whatever season it was, too, I think.
Okay.
You see some of it, but they still function independent of each other. But I don't think that we have to read that all of our characters in Rebels are going to be killed off before the events of Rogue One to tidy it up and keep them out of the way. They could be involved in other stuff. And one of the things I've liked since Rogue One was announced, really, was the possibility that we might even be setting up Death Star 2 during the events of Rogue One. I can imagine seeing the Rebels crew hook up with the Bothans and maybe, start the ball rolling on whatever's going to come next. Because we hear Jyn reference in the trailer, we will take the next opportunity and the next opportunity to strike back at the Empire. Mm-hmm. And maybe the next opportunity
might be Death Star 2.
Our crew and the Bothans going after Death Star 2 plans.
Yeah, entirely possible.
So there's no reason to think that they're going to die.
No.
There could be a subtle crossover, but it is going to be subject to sort of some scheduling, some practical considerations.
Yeah.
So there's a second part to the question. I also have a couple of episode 8 and 9 questions that are quick. First, since Rey's already pretty good with the staff, do you think we'll see a green or blue double-bladed Darth Maul-style lightsaber in her future? I hope so. A Jedi version of that would be insane. Second, since we saw Dark Force users have new powers in The Force Awakens, reading minds, stopping lasers in midair, paralyzing folks, do you think we can see any new powers unleashed by Luke and the Jedi in the future? If so, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what those might be. I think a Jedi version of Force Lightning would be very cool. Anyway, thanks again. Keep up the good work. We all really appreciate what you guys are doing. Cheers, Reese. So, second part of that question from Reese. Do you think Rey might use double-bladed lightsabers? This isn't the first time I've heard this mentioned, actually.
I think that's a no-brainer.
Because of her use of the staff.
Absolutely true. Yeah, I think that's definitely happening.
And do you remember a couple of weeks ago I mentioned some concept art by Eric Tiemens for The Force Awakens?
Yeah, that rings a bell, yeah.
It showed a silhouetted figure with a double-bladed lightsaber. One blade was blue and one was red.
Oh, right, okay.
And knowing what we know now about kyber crystals and the way they're affected by the Force user that has them in their possession... It was very intriguing. The image was very intriguing that one blade was blue and one was red.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to be read into that.
Very much
because
so.
These discussions about the kyber crystals and how they're affected by the Jedi that owns them were clearly in play back then.
Yeah.
And the thought of her maybe having mixed blade colours on a weapon would be really cool.
It would be cool. The only thing obviously everything's been undone by the Disney acquisition, so that it's not, this stuff wouldn't have been canon anyway, but they used to have a kind of a codex almost for what the lightsaber colors represented in terms of your temperament.
Oh, okay.
So it was one was Sentinel, Consular, and Vanguard maybe, and they all denoted certain types of personality, certain types
traits.
Of roles. Yeah, they would be sort of more likely to be, here we go, Sentinels, Consulars, and Guardians. That was it.
Right.
So Sentinels would be, it's almost like horoscopes. It's a bit sort of that same kind of, so Sentinels would be a mix of the Force and sort of technological, or they would use Force skills that weren't necessarily Force. So the example they use is a Guardian might bash down a locked door, a Consular would knock, and a Sentinel would pick it.
Oh, okay, right.
They all kind of, they're all exhibiting different qualities to solve the same problem. So it would be, I was sort of hoping they would bring that kind of approach back in. Particularly, as I recall, because I think that the Guardian one, which was green, was Luke's, which would make sense as to why he was a bit more violent and, dark side, flirty. Oh no, blue is the Guardian's. Never mind, or is it? Oh, I don't know.
Well,
here we go.
Notable
individuals: Anakin, Luke Skywalker, Mace Windu. And then there's Jedi Consular, which would be, I guess, Yoda.
But he's green.
Yeah. He is,
Qui-Gon's green.
Jolie Bindo. A lot of these I don't recognise. Satil Shan. Oh, I know Satil Shan. Yeah, so there's like I say, it would be nice to have had that come back in some form.
Well, in a way, I guess it is with what we've seen with Ahsoka's blades.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
so although her sensibilities are different to many. So
yeah, Joe, could be cool actually. Is if the reason it's broken, if the crystal's broken because some trauma befalls her, that starts Double Blue, and then something happens during the course of the film, some traumatic event that would build her character, which would also colour the blade.
Yeah.
Like a big fight or something.
Well, that could be interesting.
Yeah, that would be pretty sweet.
Good stuff. So what about the Jedi powers? Do you think we'll see new Jedi powers?
I think we probably will, yeah.
We don't go too far with it.
Yeah, because I mean, what was nice about Force Awakens was, again, I've talked before about how I like subtlety. And, that although the Kylo Ren stopping a blaster bolt would be significant, the fact that it's in isolation makes it more significant. There's not, Kylo Ren's not flapping about all over the place doing these incredible things.
Yeah.
He doesn't look overpowered. As a result, he just does this one act of incredible power, and then that's all you see apart from sort of, skills.
Yeah, you do see, I mean, there's the mind reading thing.
Yeah.
And then there's the fact that he picks up that Imperial officer using the Force and drags him into his grasp. Yeah. That's something we'd never seen before. That sort of takes the aggression to the next level.
Yeah, sure.
And there's been rumours that Luke might disassemble a lightsaber hilt with the Force and get to the crystal inside.
Yeah.
So we might see some of this. We might see the telekinesis taken up a notch from what we've seen Luke do in the OT. What did we see him do in the prequels? Kind of like just fruit juggling, really, wasn't it? Feeding scraps of food to your girlfriend. Not sure that's a wise use of your Jedi powers.
Yeah, true.
I think this is a good example. I'm not prequel bashing, don't get me wrong, but the way they took the Jedi abilities in the prequels made them more like superheroes. Yeah. And took away the peril that those characters were in. And I like the idea that we can give, like you said, you can give Kylo Ren a new skill set without him feeling indestructible. Yeah. Because it only takes a shot from a bowcaster and the guy's on his knees. Yeah. I'd be interested to see some of that with Luke. I don't ever want to think that Luke's completely safe wrapped inside this package of Jedi ability. Right. I want them to still be fallible, still be in peril. Yeah. But yeah, he can do some cool stuff. Sith, Jedi version of Sith lightning, of Force lightning. I'm not sure.
It depends on a lot of it's context driven. So if it works in the context of the scene, I like the Yoda's ability to absorb it and kind of give himself energy. That's a much cooler power to me.
Yeah, those spirally tendrils of lightning have always had a very aggressive, evil look to them, and not just because they've only ever been used by the dark characters. Yeah, but they just scream dark side, don't they? And I'm not sure that you could then, like, it'd be like giving Luke a red blade.
Yeah, it doesn't fit, does it?
It sends you a message as an audience member. You know what we've always said, that George wanted everything to be instantly readable on screen, so you know where you are, you know who you're dealing with. That's why everything is so clearly categorized. Yeah, Sith lightning to me, or Force lightning, is one of those elements. Like the red blade, it says bad guy. If you're going to give that to Luke, when you've already set those rules up, you're not expanding his abilities. You're changing the way we understand Luke, because you're giving him an evil ability.
So and actually, you're going to make it more likely that people are going to reject that and go, "What a load of bollocks!"
And question.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. We'll let that one pass.
All right, fine.
They're going to question whether or not Luke's fallen. If you give him that, it's a visual shorthand. You can't give him that ability and then have him sort of go off and stroke a kitten. It's just it's not going to work. We'll be confused as an audience.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that will ever transition over and become something that that we see a Jedi use.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? I'm probably inclined to go with you. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, good question, though, Reese.
Yeah, great question. So all these things are fascinating to think about.
Yeah, the Rebels and the Rogues thing. I'm really interested to see where they go with that, because they've got so much space at this point. Why the filmmakers decided to make a show that was going to butt right up against one of their theatrical releases? They've really given themselves some hot water, haven't they? Here,
yeah.
They're trying to navigate this is going to be a pigging nightmare for them, but I look forward. I look with bated breath.
Indeed.
Okay, let's run off to our first break. This is ridiculous. An hour and a half in, and it's a first break. Our only break. And when we come back, we're going to get straight into Connor's Corner. If you'd like to support what we do here at Talk Star Wars, you can do so by becoming a TSW sponsor. For as little as £1 per month given securely via PayPal, you can help us keep the lights on here at TSW. When you become a TSW sponsor, we will elevate you to VIP status. As a TSW VIP, you'll get access to an exclusive stream that provides you with fun downloads like HD wallpapers for your desktop, tablet and mobile device, ringtones and text alerts courtesy of our very own audio Jedi at Rob Wade Vision. You'll also receive a monthly newsletter with news about what's going on here at Talk Star Wars, and you'll get a priority release of the new Star Wars audio commentary series called TSW Feature Comms. All this for as little as £1 per month. Head to talkstarwars.co.uk/support and become a TSW sponsor today, and the Force will be with you always.
And we're back. So as you've just heard, we have a TSW VIP program you can become a part of by going to talkstarwars.co.uk, following the instructions there, or wind this back a few seconds and just note down the things this time. So as is customary after that break, it's time for Connor's Corner featuring Leo. So Connor writes thusly. Hello, gents. I hope you're well. This week I've gone for a classic, and it's the Desert Planet Discs format. Just to let you know. This planet has no internet, so no cheating. All your choices are final, so you're stuck with them. From each of you, God knows he's off this week. We would like how do you know? Yeah, we would like one of each. Sorry, your favorite soundtrack, your favorite movie, your favorite weapon to hunt with, and just as a little Star Wars bonus, your favorite landcraft for getting around the planet. No flying vehicles. So I'm guessing he's talking about no out of atmosphere vehicles.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Thanks, Connor, and as always, may the Force be with you. Sent by Carrier Minock. Right, so let's go through his favourite soundtrack. Start with you.
I'm going to assume that these are all from the Star Wars movies because we're a Star Wars podcast and not a big broad thing.
Yes, that's fair.
I'll be between A New Hope and Empire. Probably Empire, I would say.
Oh, but I don't know. Jedi's got some fantastic music. Battle of Endor, especially.
It's the asteroid field of an Empire that's sways.
No, that is good. Yeah,
and it's got the first appearance of the Imperial March as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot on there. I mean, there are things I could probably do a playlist in iTunes.
Yeah,
and crop my favourite thing out of each movie. That would include things like the Duel of the Fates and Beyond the Stars.
Yeah.
And is it Battle of the Heroes? Is it the one in Revenge of the Sith? Obi-Wan and Anakin dueling. A Binary Sunset, Asteroid Field. You know, you can cherry pick the best, can't you? But I think for one listening experience, Empire is probably my favourite OST.
Okay. I'm going to go with Jedi, I think. Some of those themes just have never left me, like the Imperial, sort of the Emperor's theme in there.
Yeah. The intro music to the After Dark side.
Yeah, that sort of thing. And the Battle of Endor's got some fantastic music as well.
Yeah, really good.
Right, next. Favourite movie?
so difficult. It's between two, A New Hope or Empire. And this is Desert Island Planet, so I'm stuck with the choice I make forever. I'm going to choose Empire. I'm going to acknowledge A New Hope as being the thing that we need to get to Empire. But there's too much going on in Empire for me to never have access to it again.
Yeah.
Empire Strikes Back.
Okay. Yeah, I'd have to go with Empire Strikes Back as well.
I'm not sure that qualifies it as a better movie, but it would definitely be out of, if I had to choose one for this purpose, of only having the one, there's so much more there. We're going to go with that.
Yeah. Okay, next. Your favourite weapon to hunt with?
What a bizarre question.
It's a really weird question, isn't it?
But I suppose because we're on a desert planet, we need to survive. A bowcaster, I've seen what that thing can do.
That's true, yeah. But then at the same time, here's a question for you then. Is it going to cause the animal to be blown up and no good to eat?
It might be cooked.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's possible, but,
Shoot a Nerf and it might blast it into a lot of little pre-cooked hamburgers.
That's what I'm thinking. But at the same time, if it's something smaller, then you might find you've not got anything you can actually work with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a tricky one.
It's true. It's a very powerful weapon.
Tough to balance. This is it. I'm going to go for a Blastech DL-44, which is what Han carries.
Right.
Powerful enough to put something down, but not so powerful that it's going to blow it to pieces. Okay. I was mulling over a Camino and Saber Dart, but then I figured that if I didn't do it properly, I'd poison myself. And also, I'm the kind of pillock who'd shoot myself in the leg.
That DL-44, are you not going to have to get up close and personal to a lot of the things that you're going to plan to eat?
Depends on how good a shot I become.
No, that's true. You've got a lot of time between listening to your chosen soundtrack and your chosen movie. That's awesome. All right, favourite landcraft.
Favourite landcraft.
No flying vehicles. This is why I said earlier in the episode that Luke's land speed is probably going to get another mention, because that would be my choice. It's not really a floating vehicle; it's hovering.
There's not a huge number of them, is there? I'd go for the
non-flying vehicles.
Non-flying vehicles, yeah. There are not many iconic ones, I guess.
What about vehicles that walk?
Oh, good shout.
You can live in one as well.
That's very true. All right, yeah. AT-AT.
There you go.
Except not a flat hat.
Yeah, not.
I'll have a rope. That's
not
fine.
One parked firmly on its side.
Yeah. Oh, actually, do you know what? Actually, I'll go for an AT-ST just because it's a little bit more maneuverable.
Yeah.
And easier to get into as well, because you can clearly climb up on one of those.
Yeah. Yeah, good call. AT-ST, chicken walker.
Oh, as always, a great question, Connor.
Yeah, nice one. I like to have to pick. I like to make lists of my favourite things in Star Wars. Awesome.
Yeah, I like being forced to choose something forever. Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, no way out of it. Okay, Twitter poll results.
Yeah,
conscious of the clock ticking. Okay, Twitter poll results. So last week's question was a listener question. So a listener poll. It was Nathan Roberts, VIP, who Nathan Kenobi, who asked, which Star Wars technology do you think we're the closest to seeing in real life?
Yes.
Holographic communication, gas-powered plasma weapons, robotic military units, or personal hover transportation. We have final results. We had 100 votes, which makes this possibly the neatest.
Yeah, it's lovely and tidy, isn't it?
The neatest poll we've ever had. This only went out to, it was not that much smaller of an audience, really, 1,986 people this week. 48% of those who voted said holographic communication.
Interesting.
Only 3% said gas-powered plasma weapons. 38% said robotic military units. Okay. And 11% said personal hover transport. I think that's a really good look at where we are.
I think that's probably about right.
In terms of technology, because I think that's just about right.
I was torn between holographic communication and robotic military units because we do already have drones.
We do have drones,
but not in the same way that we're talking about.
No, not like the little battle bots and things like that. But they are not far away.
Yes, indeed.
That's really cool. Well, thanks to everyone that took part in that this week. I'm not going to set a Twitter question this week.
Okay.
Because we're not going to be around to handle it. You can only run a poll for 7 days, so...
Oh, that's true, yeah.
What I might do is keep an eye on things when the special podcast goes up the week after next, or 1 week from this one. I might put out a Twitter poll at that time. It'll be pinned to our profile as usual.
Yep.
And then we can discuss the results of it in the next episode that we sit down and record together, which will be the week after.
Okay, fair enough.
Ready to do some Star Wars news?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so let's start with The Force Awakens.
Okay.
And this is interesting considering what we were just talking about in the break.
Yes.
Actually, Rob.
Yes.
So J.J. Abrams did an audio commentary for The Force Awakens, and it was great. That is my official review of his audio commentary. There wasn't a lot revealed, but there were some great insights into the production. So Michael Giacchino, and it's official, that's how you say his name. I've known this for years. Giacchino. It's really frustrated to me. Okay. All these years, people were saying Giacchino. It's Giacchino. He actually said it himself on the special features for Ratatouille. Now, why you weren't watching the special features for Ratatouille, I don't know, but it was in there. That's how you say his name. Moving on. He played a stormtrooper called FN 3181, which is the guy just to Poe's left, our right, in the scene where Poe is delivered to Kylo Ren.
Okay.
With the apparatus.
Interesting, isn't it?
It's very interesting that the new composer
he was around.
Is in Star Wars.
Yeah, that he was around, despite the fact that officially he had no dealings with them as yet.
No.
Makes you wonder if they had him as a backup plan, or even in the fold in the mix for Rogue One earlier on.
Well, his name was connected to The Force Awakens by fandom before John Williams was announced.
Right.
So he was always on the radar because of his history with both Disney and JJ.
Okay, I see.
But
it's not that surprising then, actually, yeah.
It was never considered seriously by the studio, I don't think.
Okay.
Because John Williams, the maestro, is Star Wars.
Yeah, quite so.
So you never think about replacing him, do you? But for this project, I'm actually surprised it took him this long to get to Giacchino.
Yeah.
But there were
what else was on there?
There were a couple other little things in there as well, like the reveal that there was some digital hair extensions on Han Solo in certain scenes.
Yeah.
They had to do that because by the time he came back from his downtime after his broken leg, his hair had grown out. So the scenes that survived the rewrite, because they did some rewriting during his downtime, they had to modify some of the shots with Han that had already existed. So they lengthened his hair digitally.
Right.
They mentioned that when Poe and Rey are in the hold of the Falcon and Chewie after the "We're home" moment, they mention that there as where they've extended his hair. But there is a scene on...
What do you mean Finn and Rey?
Sorry, what did I say?
Poe.
Oh, sorry, I meant Finn.
That's all right.
Yeah, they mentioned it there, but then on Maz's planet, is that Takodana?
Yes, Takodana, yeah.
There's a scene where Han looks really odd. And I've always thought it looked really odd. And now I'm beginning to wonder whether or not it's the digital hair extensions.
Maybe, yeah.
Because there's something off about just a few frames in there that I was just looking at thinking, what have they done? Have they changed him physically? Is this a CGI Harrison Ford was in? But this might explain that. But the more meaty stuff, and we just had a bit of a discussion that relates to some of this for something that you picked up from Nathan in the VIP Facebook group.
Yes.
JJ did say that Rey was left behind by her parents during the Force back scene. which I thought was very interesting. It doesn't mean that that's going to survive Ryan's script for episode 8 and 9.
No, that's true.
But it does say that as JJ understands Rey's origin at this point in time, she was left as a little girl
by her
on
parents.
Jakku by her parents.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing. Maybe not a literal representation of events, but how she remembers it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what you've picked up on from Nathan's article.
Yeah, so he linked to an IGN article which kind of reported on one of the sort of seeming revelations that have come out of the Blu-ray commentary. One of the things that JJ mentions is that Kylo and Rey have never met. And what I found interesting about that is it instantly dispels, if true, I'll speculate, I'll kind of clarify that there. If true, it basically blows apart two of the strongest fan theories doing the rounds, two of the most prevalent ones. One is that Kylo Ren put her there on Jakku himself after wiping her memory. And the other is that she's a Skywalker, because if she's a Skywalker, they would have had to have crossed paths at some point in that time. But if they don't know each other, and he's never met her, although he's heard of her, then it's unlikely that she's a Skywalker. Which is interesting, because it doesn't mean we're actually just going to see a new original character backstory. I'm kind of hoping we do.
That's what I think it means. That's what I think Rey has been to me for quite some time now. That she's a new character, and the Skywalker in this trilogy, the Skywalker in question, is actually a Solo. It's Kylo.
Yeah, maybe.
It's interesting stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
It's interesting to me how I've watched the 3D Blu-ray with the audio commentary. It's actually a 2D version of the film that has the audio commentary that comes in the pack with the 3D Blu-ray. I watched that straight away and listened to JJ's audio commentary, and I did not pick up on the things. I did not read anything into what he said about Leia and Rey having never met, and Kylo and I didn't read anything into that. I don't know if it's because he wasn't emphasizing it or what, but I didn't read anything into that.
Okay.
The thing he said about her parents stood out to me a mile away.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. It's nearly a year in, and we're still getting Force Awakens news. It's cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Okay. Rogue One: A Star Wars Story. So this year's Star Wars movie. We got a new Rogue One image and some comments from Gareth Edwards about the movie and how it plays out. So this is a snippet from a conversation in Entertainment Weekly.
Okay.
Events take place that shatter. Talking about Jyn. Events take place that shatter her life and send her off, basically, to be raised as a soldier in the midst of a war. She ends up not the person she was supposed to be. Her journey is also a very Star Warsy one, to redeem the sins of the father. Even though we're not telling the story of Luke Skywalker, it's important to me that we capture the same themes and emotion, but this film doesn't unfold how you think. It's not the same path as Star Wars. So, looking at that first sentence, events take place that shatter her life and send her off to basically be raised as a soldier. You know, we looked at that image that I think it was Chris Holland sent us of Rey as a kid with the Imperial insignia. Is there a chance she was raised by the Empire?
Maybe. Maybe it's not just Galen who goes with them. Maybe they all go. Interesting. Let's put things into interesting perspective.
Raised as a soldier in the midst of the war.
Yeah. It does seem like they're, she's definitely up in kind of nearby where it's all going on. So maybe it is,
Timing would be right.
Maybe it, yeah, exactly. And maybe at some point then he sort of sends her off and helps her escape or something.
If this film's 19, 20 years after Revenge of the Sith.
Yep.
She's, say, 25.
Yep.
She's been on her own since she was 15.
Yep.
Which would put her
about halfway through.
The Empire would be about 10 years old When if you're to read these things literally,
yeah,
the Empire would be about 10 years old when she splits and goes solo, which could be read as the path the actual Solo takes if his history with the Empire remains canon.
Yeah.
And then these guys that we're seeing now, we've seen Wedge, we've seen Hobby leave the Empire to join the rebellion. So it's like a mass exodus of Imperial personnel off to join the rebellion. So I'm wondering if she could have grown up very much a part of the Empire.
Yeah, it's entirely possible, yeah.
I like what you're saying there as well about, it's not, you're not just going to see a retread of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Sure, her mission's pretty similar to Luke's, but we're not going to see the same thing. The new image, by the way, is in the show notes if you want to see the new image. It's just the frame that's lifted from the trailer, basically. We've seen it, but we've just seen it moving. There's another quote from Gareth here as well. The thing every filmmaker typically struggles with is, how does it end, says Gareth Edwards. But we knew our film was going to end. We knew how our film was going to end. Our problem became, how do we reverse engineer that so that we know where to start? You've got a finite number of options, and you go through them like a jigsaw puzzle, and find one that's going to lead to the strongest result. It's pretty cool that they're kind of playing that. The way I'm reading that, they're kind of playing that moment at the start of episode 4, as where they reverse engineered.
I think that's right. Yeah,
the Tantive 4, the blockade runner, and working backwards from there. So
sounds reasonable.
We've assumed for a while that that's where this movie's going to end, haven't we? So
yeah, indeed.
That's pretty much what that's implying to me.
I think so.
Okay, have I got... Oh, yeah, some of the notes have moved out of order, I've noticed.
Oh, right, okay. I've got a Topps trading card next.
Yeah, they've been juggled around us because I've added... Actually, I think something I've added to my version of the show notes has thrown me off.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so yeah, does the Topps trading card reveal that Porkins will appear in Rogue One? The card was found by Rob Williams, our colleague over at Generation X-Wing, who wrote a great piece on it, which Jason at Making Star Wars picked up on.
Nice.
So you can see the images there. Hopefully you've got them on your show notes. Mine have moved.
I do indeed.
So you've got, this is from Rob's article, you've got the picture of Porkins from A New Hope.
Yep.
And then you've got the Topps trading card that he found at the weekend, which includes Porkins pretty much. I think he's the second one in from the left.
That looks right, yeah.
And the helmet design you can see
very similar.
Very, very similar.
Yeah.
To what he's wearing now.
It looks pretty similar to me.
I was speaking to Jason at Making Star Wars about this.
Okay.
And I'd sent him these images. And I said they're kind of the same. And he sent me one back of another character in the Rogue One trailer wearing the same helmet.
Okay.
And he said to me, what does this mean? What's going on? Why are we seeing...
Same one multiple times. Yeah.
And I'm wondering now, I don't know how much is in the show notes of my thought process, but I was wondering if what we're seeing is more pilots than there is equipment. Because Rob subsequently sent me more trading cards, and there's a guy that's holding Biggs Darklighter's helmet. You know, with the black and yellow checkwork on it. Yeah. But he definitely isn't Biggs.
Right.
And it made me wonder whether or not we're seeing the rebellion have more equipment, more pilots than they've got equipment. So people are having to share stuff, and they're going out, like Rogue Squadron will go out wearing this kit, and then they'll come back, and then Gold Group will go out with the same helmets and what have you. And maybe we're just associating these with these characters like we would do Maverick in Top Gun, because these helmets seem to be customized when really they're not. They're just we're familiar with them because they've been on these pilots.
Yeah, it's plausible, isn't it?
Yeah, but they might not be exclusive to these pilots, which is quite interesting.
Yeah,
great find by Rob though, spotting
this. It is an incredible spot.
How on earth would you spot that?
I could only dream of being so thorough.
Yeah, really, really eagle-eyed.
Mm.
It's quite
considering the line of work I'm in, that's a bit sad, isn't it?
You're supposed to be finding these things.
Yeah.
Okay, should we move on to episode 8 stuff? That's about all we got for Rogue One. I'm frustrated because we're getting close to it now. There should be more.
Well, they're locking it down. That's what it is.
Yeah. So there's a Luke Skywalker costume description. I probably need to say some spoilers for episode 8 here. This is our last thing of the night, so if you are worried about potential spoilers, this comes from a rock-solid source, the aforementioned Jason Ward at MakingStarWars.net. So if you're the least bit shy of spoilers for episode 8, then I'd suggest probably jumping out now, because we really don't want to upset anybody. But Luke Skywalker costume descriptions have hit. Now, I'm really intrigued by some of this stuff, especially the part that suggests that Luke is probably more like Yoda in episode 8 than anything else.
Okay.
So there is a depiction from the training sequence where Rey is getting frustrated with Luke's teachings. I've just lifted a couple of quotes out of the MSW post because I find that line really interesting.
Yeah.
Rey is getting frustrated with Luke's teachings.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't we say that might be something that pushes Rey away or towards the dark side?
Yeah,
if she starts
absolutely.
We've said that for some time now, haven't we?
Yeah, it's key to bear in mind that she wants blood. She wants revenge for Han Solo's death as well in her mind. So if she's not learning what she needs to know to take him out fast enough, she's going to probably be a bit annoyed.
Okay. You've just unlocked something for me.
Okay.
Is that Snoke's intention all along?
I think so. I think he's playing the long game.
Is Kylo the pawn?
Yes. We've talked about this before. We came to this theory together.
And did we?
Yeah, it's our Snoke theory. That he's playing the long game. He knows Rey's his ultimate prize. And the idea of Kylo is nothing to do with...
We did discuss that way back, didn't we, on one of your first episodes?
Yeah, we did. We talked about how it's entirely possible that he's actually going for Rey, and Kylo is in place to become the object of Rey's frustrations by taking out the closest thing she's ever had closest thing she's had to her father in recent memory, and that would make him persona non grata to her. So
Han's a sacrificial lamb.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just thinking about this now and trying to think how Kylo's balance of dark and light helps Snoke. Because that's one of the things he really valued, wasn't it, about Kylo?
Yes. It will make... All right, it's going out on a limb, this one, but I'll have a go. It makes Kylo's struggle more believable when he's agonizing over whether or not to take Han down.
Well, that helps us, but how does that help Snoke? Is Snoke attracted to Kylo because of his light side leanings, and he can press on that? That's the trigger point. That's the point that he can manipulate the most. Sort of say to him, you're weak. You want to be Vader, but you can't be Vader because you're compassionate, and you need to take out your father and prove that you're not weak. And then in doing that is what pushes Rey over the edge. I'm not sure.
Like I say, I think...
I might have to go back and listen to our own theory because it's on a YouTube channel, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's one of our more popular videos. I think it's entirely plausible. I think that Snoke would know that, Rey has been missing a family figure because he might have, for all we know, he has something to do with her being there in the first place.
On Jakku.
Yeah, exactly. He knows, we assume, if he's, as we believe to be, the character from Life Debt.
Yes.
If that turns out to be true, then he's very much familiar with what's on Jakku.
Yeah, and why it's there.
And why it's important.
Send the girl there.
Yeah, exactly. So he sends her there to sort of, especially if it's something that can kind of
really is a long game, though, isn't it? Why not just get hold of Rey himself as a child?
As well, at the same time, why not as Sidious? Why not get Anakin on board as a kid? It's the long game is sometimes part of a grander plan to put something much bigger in place. We've seen that, evidenced in Sidious.
God, we need answers, don't we?
We do. Although the speculation is quite fun too.
Oh, it's a lot of fun, and it's our bread and butter now. So it's
big time.
I do get a thrill out of that, but that one line, Rey is frustrated with Luke's teachings.
Yeah,
I can't decide.
There's a lot without saying anything, doesn't it?
Yeah, I can't decide whether or not that's just a side effect of what Snoke's doing, or if that's Snoke's objective.
I think that's his hope. I don't know if necessarily he's going to successfully do it, but I think that's definitely the objective is to kind of send her into training, and he might even be letting her go to Luke, fully aware of Luke's presence, which would explain why they're able to find him so quickly after Rey does.
Yeah,
because he's known anyway all along, and he's just kind of playing with Kylo, saying, "Oh, you got to find the map. You got to find the map." And actually, he knows where Skywalker is the whole time.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a thought. I don't know how credible it is, but it's a thought.
All that from talking about Luke's costume. So in the film, the costume, back to Luke's costume, in the film, the costume is apparently just filthy most of the time. This is from MakingStarWars.net again.
Yeah.
Skywalker is more like Yoda on Dagobah in terms of style than the white regal costume he wore to meet Rey at the end of The Force Awakens. What I do is something about this that I've been harbouring this little thing about Obi-Wan in A New Hope.
Okay.
That when we meet Obi-Wan and he's wearing the Jedi robes, that doesn't make any sense to me. It's something that needs to be retconned, because a Jedi in hiding wouldn't walk around dressed like a Jedi.
Unless they're his pajamas.
Just like Finn didn't stroll into that little town on Jakku dressed as a stormtrooper.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense to me that Obi-Wan would live out his life dressed in Jedi robes on Tatooine, because it's drawing attention to who he is. And remember, there's the Jedi Purge to deal with, and all of the Jedi have a price on their head, don't they?
Yeah.
So I like the idea that the day when Obi-Wan meets Luke in that canyon in A New Hope, he wore the robes, because that's the day he's the Jedi again for the first time.
Okay.
And he's taking Luke on his first steps down that pathway.
I have an alternative theory,
which is
about Luke's outfit, and well, not so much the outfit, but the bit about Rey being frustrated with his teachings.
Yeah,
that's him testing her, like Yoda tested him.
Oh yeah. Well, that, like they say, he's more like Yoda on Dagobah. Yeah, so he's like that. Yeah, that jester sort of.
He's just that kind of bumbling. He plays a kind of bumbling fool just to kind of get to her.
It's the drunken master stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So that might be an element to it as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm with you there. And I think this white costume that he wore at the end of The Force Awakens might be his version of Obi-Wan slipping back into the robes for...
Yeah, for the presentation of his old tat.
It's marking the, I'm back in the game, and this is me marking that moment and giving the right impression. I am this Jedi Master. This is me.
Mythical figure. Yeah.
Not just, half an hour ago, I was in my pants eating a donut. Now I'm dressed in this wonderful white and grey robe.
Yeah.
All right, there's a final part to this. There isn't really any belt or anything for his lightsaber. It makes us wonder. This is a game from MSW. It makes us wonder if our friends in Ireland saw was actually a saber during filming. There seems to be some contention as to whether or not Luke actually uses a lightsaber in this film.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
If I don't see him spark up a lightsaber, I'm going to be heartbroken.
Yeah.
And I think many people would feel the same.
Mm-hmm.
And after shortchanging people in episode 7, do you really want to do that again?
Yeah, indeed.
Luke has to, think Palpatine didn't have any belts in Revenge of the Sith.
No, it's true.
And he had a couple of lightsabers on him at all times.
Yeah.
So it could be that Luke's adopted that, don't have the weapon out all the time. It's there. It's behind his back or something, it's in his chew.
Yeah. I mean, if he's been used to kind of being a recluse, he's probably used to keeping it stum, because obviously if somebody just happens to pass by, he's like, what, Jedi? No, mate.
Yeah.
I don't know why he talks like a market trader in the East End.
I'm not sure either, but it kind of works.
Jedi? Nah, mate. Jog on.
I like the idea that he might just keep the lightsaber anywhere on Octo.
Yeah.
And you can just call it to him wherever it is.
What if it's in R2?
Could be in R2, couldn't it?
Yeah.
He's done that before.
Yeah. And that's maybe why he's putting his hand on the dome. He's like, look after that.
Oh, yes. That makes sense. And if he is trying to be the Bendu, wouldn't he get rid of all of his weapons?
Exactly.
And then the little droid's back. That would be a great callback if
now
we see
he's like,
that.
oh, you're joking. And I bet you lost it.
What if R2 fires out that lightsaber when the Knights of Ren battle starts?
Oh,
and
imagine
Luke lights up and it's a white blade.
Theatres will erupt, wouldn't they?
Can you imagine if that's a white blade? I'm going to poop.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
There will at least be some mild turtling.
Remind me not to go to a midnight showing with you, because I'm blatantly going to one.
That's awesome. That should be our question. Will we? Maybe the next Twitter poll question might be: will Luke have a white bladed lightsaber?
Yeah. It would see. I mean, Rebels has seeded it, isn't it? So
it's definitely seeded it
theoretically.
And the Ahsoka novel goes even further with that.
Yeah, I need to read this now. You've said that.
You do. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Indeed.
Well, we'll have a little chat about the novel off air.
Okay.
But right now, let's wrap this one up.
Yep.
Sorry, it's just been us two this week, guys. I know.
I'm not. This has been great.
I know. You and I can get a lot deeper without sort of having to worry about slow walking Steve through everything. But I know people enjoy the irreverence.
It's not nice.
The irreverence that comes with having Steve on a podcast, and he does bring some entertainment value. Not to mention Paul. Not shortchanging Paul. Paul is the Bendu here.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Steve is some sort of dark side vegan.
Jar Jar.
He's Darth Jar Jar.
I'm being unjust.
Steve won't hear this.
He'd take that as a massive diss for a start.
Yeah, but then he'd forget about it instantly, so it's a free.
Well, there is that, yeah.
All right. Thank you for listening to Talk Star Wars again this week, episode 48. Don't forget there will be no regular show next week, but you will be getting something, and we'll be back the week after. Leave us a 5-star review in iTunes and take advantage of the Ron Burgundy challenge, Ron Burgundy guarantee. Whatever you write in there, I will read as long as it's clean. So if you want to promote your own blog or podcast, that is the place to do it. And you can email us your questions and comments to talkstarwarsinfo@gmail.com. It's talkstarwarsinfo@gmail.com. Or you can reach out to us on one of our many social channels, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, to name but a few. With that said, mate, where can people find you on Tinternet?
You can find me on Tinternet at Rob Wade Vision on Twitter and Instagram. I don't post on Instagram nearly as much as on Twitter. Twitter, I'm quite prolific. The trick is getting me to shut up. You can also find a separate blog channel I run with a couple of friends, which is Emotionally14, emotionally14.com. It's got a YouTube channel, 2 podcasts, which are back in semi-regular circulation, knock wood. I'm not going to jinx anything just yet by saying it's back full time, but definitely going to be upping the output, hopefully in the sort of for the coming future. So I had a recording last night and it was jolly good fun, and hopefully the listeners will feel the same.
Superb. You can find everything I do at talkstarwars.co.uk, and I'm on Twitter at talkstarwars. You can also find our partner podcasts. The wonderful Tumbling Saber, the guys at Generation X-Wing, and the New Kids on the Block, Rogue Squadron, new to us anyway. Fantastic shows, worth your time. They should become a part of your regular schedule of podcast listening. They're not all about Star Wars. It's pretty much just us and Tumbling Saber. And the guys at Tumbling Saber, congratulations on your new show, by the way. Sith
indeed.
Disturbers, fantastic.
It's fun. I listened to it the other day.
You can find all that at StarWarsCommonwealth.com. That's our network. You can find links to every host every show and some T-shirts, all at StarWarsCommonwealth.com, linked in the podcast notes to this episode. Thanks once again for joining us this week. We'll be back in the near future, hopefully with some other hosts. Until then, as Paul is fond of saying, take care of each other.
May the force be with you.
Indeed.
It's a wrap. It's a wrap.